Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about some more information and some more support as it relates to coping with all of the everything. I guess that's just the only way to say it. Coping with everything. Coping with COVID, coping with the social unrest, coping with the impending election, coping with everything.
Yeah, we keep saying that we're going to move beyond COVID. We're going to talk about other things.
Right.
And we sort of are talking about two things today, but it is about COVID. And the reason it's about COVID is every week we keep encountering people really struggling with the difficult circumstances that this virus is imposing on us. Right. That there's talk right now. Remember the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918? One of the problems was when it came back in the summer, it occurred in 1919. When it came back, it had mutated. Mm-hmm. And so now there's talk that COVID-19 may have mutated and it could be in a more virulent form. And so we now have reached the 200,000 mark. 200,000 people have died. Nobody's talking about that anymore. It should be a cause for concern, but nobody's talking about that. And so the topic of COVID continues to insinuate itself into our lives. So we thought, this article is a little bit, somewhat of a different take on how we might manage the stress. One way or another, all of us are feeling stress. Right. No matter who you talk to, parents are feeling a certain kind of stress, the elderly, those who are living alone, single people, working people, people who have jobs, people who have lost their jobs. So everybody's struggling. Most everybody is struggling in some way or another with this stress. So last week we talked about COVID fatigue and the toll that it's taking. So this article is about, let's take another look at the stress we're feeling and what we might be able to do about it. A little bit different approach.
Well, what I also like is that it just so happened that we found this article, and last week you alluded to locus of control, and that is something that this author talks a lot about. But it also addresses some of the issues that we have voiced and have continued repeatedly to talk about with, self-help and sort of cognitive behavioral therapy in general. Some of those concerns with, just fake it till you make it, or just don't think about it, or just do this, or just do. That's difficult for a lot of people. And I like the way that this author kind of addresses some of those issues.
Right. Yeah, we've had many people, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, who cognitive behavioral therapy is a powerful tool. Yeah. But if you just ask people to change their thinking, most people are not going to be able to do that. I mean, it doesn't make sense to them. They're not even sure what we're talking about when we say, well, just change your thinking and that'll change your world. Right. It's not quite that easy. It's like change your behavior. Changing your behavior is not an easy thing to do, especially if it's something you've been doing for many years. But the other thing we like about this article is that it is about taking control of your life. And when we talk to the people we see in our practice, we talk to them about, look, you have to eat properly, you have to sleep properly, you have to exercise, you have to assume some control of your life. You can't have bad habits and expect medication to take care of it. You are responsible for your own health, both mental and physical. And this article sort of speaks to the issue in that way. So it's consistent with the kind of work that we like to do.
Absolutely. I was just talking with somebody in this past week about, they were talking about medication for depression and how effective it is. And we were talking about how, medication does one thing, but the goal is something different than what medication can provide. We want to be able to manage the symptoms. We want to be able to, have some agency and control in our lives, and medication makes us gives the illusion of that. Exactly. But it doesn't really provide that. And so
Right.
Again, we're going to kind of touch on some of that today.
Right. Yeah. Medication provides symptom reduction, symptom relief, but that's just the beginning of a larger process. And it's that larger process that he talks about in this article.
Absolutely.
So he begins by what is the stress that we're facing? And he says, stress can be a motivator, but it can also be a crushing burden. And he talks about Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You don't remember him because this probably happened before you were born, right?
Right.
You remember Alex? You don't remember him. Yeah, I was teaching and you were not born yet. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a Russian intellectual, but he was also a Russian dissident. And he ended up spending 8 years in their prison camp system. Mm-hmm. And the prison camp system in Russia is called a gulag, G-U-L-A-G. And it's a string of these work camps in Siberia. And the interesting thing about Siberia is that it's so far away. Russia's an enormously big country. And when you were sent to these work camps, there were no bars or cells because there was no place to go. There was like 3,000 miles. So if you want to take off, go ahead, but you're going to die within a few days. And so, but these gulags were work camps, and he was consigned to one of those. He was arrested and imprisoned for some writing that he had done. And he to survive, to maintain his freedom, he decided that he would double the amount of wood that he was supposed to chop. So his jailer said, you have to do this much. And he said, well, I'm going to do this much, which was a way of maintaining his control. I can't control where I am. I can't control the weather. I can't control that I'm a prisoner, but I do have this capacity. I can exercise this freedom. And you hear many of these same stories from the prison camps in the concentration camps in World War II. Those who survived said they never gave up. They continued to exercise agency and never gave up. So that's what this is about. So but the issue is, how do you exercise agency in the face of enormous stress? And certainly being in a gulag is enormous stress.
Right. Well, and another person that talked a lot about that was Viktor Frankl, who was very well-known psychiatrist, who was in some of the Jewish concentration camps during World War II. And, he talked about all the challenges that he experienced, but how he, kept going and survived, and how some of the other people with him who survived, again, very, very motivating and very inspirational as it relates to that whole idea of you have these life circumstances that you can't change.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
But even within something that you can't change, you can still have some agency. You can still have some internal locus of control.
Right.
And I think that's really important, because with that sense of locus of control, that internal sense of locus of control, that's how we can overcome some of the distress and feelings of being overwhelmed and depression and anxiety and things. Right. And we feel as though we have some control, we can overcome some of those issues.
Right. So here we have a situation with this pandemic where all of us are feeling some level of stress, some level of discomfort. And when animals, humans or other species, are faced with a stressful situation, especially a life-threatening situation, he says, this author said, we have 4 choices: fight, flight, fold, which he says give up and die. Fold to him means give up and die. So you have flight, fight, fold. But the other one is to seek protection. He said the difference with humans is we have a 4th option, and the 4th option is we can seek protection, with help from somebody to relieve us of this burden. He said the problem, however, is that we believe that protection comes from someplace else. It comes from, an outside source. And he mentions like dictators or authoritarian leaders who they promise to protect us from enemies. Okay, when Hitler took over power, he's going to protect us from the Russians. And so that's very appealing, because people start to feel safe that this leader can protect us from our enemies or our problems. So the leader will solve our problems. They call him Führer, leader. He could solve our problems. And so we have this tendency to look outside ourselves. In our field, people who have this idea that protection comes from the outside will search for medication. They'll seek medications. Okay?
Right.
In other words, I have a problem, so I have to take this medication. I have ADHD, so I have to take this medication. And as we said earlier in the introduction to the program, the medication is simply a step in a larger process, longer process. That the medication will give you symptom reduction that then allows you to do the things that you need to do. And what he talks about here is, what do you need to do?
Right. And if you think just in general terms, what that means is when you're seeking that shelter, that support from someone else, what you are in essence saying is, I can't do it myself. Right. I need someone else to do it.
Right.
And in some ways, getting the help from someone else is, I guess, getting help from someone else is one thing. Believing that somebody else is going to take care of it for you is something very different. You know,
right.
When we work with patients, we aren't solving their problems for them. You know, a lot of times, Richard, I know that you've experienced this as well. People will come in and they'll say, you know, fix me, you know, make this better, make this go. I can't do that.
No.
I can give you some tools. I can give you some strategies and some skills so that you can do it.
Right.
But I don't, you know, there's 168 hours in a week. You're with me for one of those.
Right. That's right.
I can't fix the other 167 hours.
That's right.
That's up to you. You have to work and do the task. So, you know, when we seek that shelter, if we have to be careful the perspective that we have, so that we don't just focus on this person is going to solve my problems, this person is going to protect me, and instead say, I need some support, some assistance, but it's still my responsibility. Again, that's that internal locus of control.
Exactly. I can explain what you're experiencing. I can explain your diagnosis. I can explain why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I can tell you what other people have done to relieve those symptoms or to deal with it. But there's no, I don't have a pill. I don't have a bag. Nobody does. Nobody has a pill or a bag or a set of strategies that if you do this, this will happen. It's using these things to change, your whole life. Okay. Right. Not just a single set of symptoms. And so, this idea that if I'm feeling some sort of distress, that all I have to do is go into a store and pull something off a shelf, you know, like this pill will do the trick. And so I go into the store, or today, I guess you would order it on Amazon and have it delivered to your home. And then you take this pill or this medicine, and suddenly things get better. And it just doesn't work that way.
That's a very 21st century Western perspective.
Right. To take a pill.
Yeah, that there's something that's going to magically make it go away.
Right. And people will live in these extraordinarily stressful circumstances. And I told you about one of the places where I worked, where it was such a toxic environment that almost everybody there had eventually sought medical treatment in order to come to work every day. Well, the problem is the environment that you're in. Okay.
Right. And we did a podcast on it before, where we talked about the idea that people would rather take a medication to decrease the distressing symptoms than they would in changing the things in their lives that are causing the distressing symptoms.
Right. I hate my job so much that I have to take antidepressants in order to get out of bed every day. Well, the problem is not depression. The problem is you're doing something that you're not suited.
Right.
You're not suited for. So this idea that, and the other extreme, so we have one group who says, if I take this medication, there's a lot of other people, and I struggle with this because there are a lot of other people who say, well, what you experience doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life, as long as you have that you develop you do this mental gymnastics, or you rethink things, and you just think about things differently, that it's not really a threat, it's really this, that you'll be able to manage all of your circumstances. And as you said earlier, that's kind of a fantasy world, you know, that just pretend that it doesn't exist, or just say that, well, nothing that's happening out there is really real. Well, newsflash, COVID is real, okay? Right. And you can't just ignore it, because COVID insinuates itself into our lives in many different ways.
Right.
And so you have to, what this author says is, you can't take either one of these extremes, that I can take a pill or I can change my thinking, okay, and everything will be better. Rather, he says you have to balance, you have to find some balance between what's going on in my world,
right,
and what can I do about it.
right.
Right?
Yeah,
Now, we can't do anything about COVID.
Right, right. Simply saying, well, that's not real. I'm just going to, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't believe that COVID is real. That's not realistic. It's destructive.
Right.
It's dangerous, and
Right.
not just to yourself, but to other people. And so, we do live in a society where we have to, where we do have to think about ourselves, but we also have to think about other people and how our actions and our intentions influence and affect other people, whether we like it or not. We have to
That's
think
right.
about that.
Yeah, what we're dealing with right now with this virus it doesn't care about anything. It just is, okay?
Right.
And so we have to understand what we're dealing with. You have to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And to say that, I think that's an excellent point that you make, to say, well, it's a hoax or it doesn't exist, okay? It does exist, okay? 200,000 people have died, millions have gotten sick. So the virus does exist. So you have to begin with acknowledging and understanding what's going on in the world where you live. And right now, what's going on is this worldwide pandemic.
Right.
And so we can't simply say, well, I'm going to pretend that it doesn't exist and do these things like not wear a mask. That's not exercising your freedom. That's not solving your problem. What solves your problem is I acknowledge, I understand this virus, and I understand that it's causing me discomfort. What can I do about my discomfort?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to balance between these two.
Right.
On one hand, we have to look at it realistically, but on the other hand, we have to, the initial example was, we have to figure out how we can exert some control over this situation. And I think that a great example of that has been with the masks, actually. When you think about how frustrated so many people are with having to wear masks, and even the challenges associated with having kids wear masks at school, how do we overcome that? Well, we overcome that by creating masks that, express something about yourself. And so we have masks with Pokemon on it. We have masks with that have, that make it look like a mouth of some other animal or something. But we have different characters and different things and sayings and everything on them. But we're personalizing the masks to make them, I have to wear this, but here's how I'm going to express myself, even though I have to do something that I don't really want to do.
Right. Let's see, what is this? Almost October. 6 months ago, everybody was worried about, college football is something akin to a religion in this country.
Right.
Okay. And so everybody, especially in the Southeast, was worried about what was going to happen during football season. Where are we going to have a football season? How do you do this in the pandemic?
Right.
And at first they said, we're not going to have a season. And then they said, well, maybe we'll have a season. And there's maybe a partial season. And so I was watching some games yesterday just to see how they were managing it. And the thought struck me that there was a time when wearing a mask seemed so foreign and so bizarre. And we were kind of embarrassed when we were early adopters. You and I recognized, we knew something about virology, and we knew that we had to protect ourselves. So we wore masks when many people weren't wearing them. Right. And it felt very, very odd, to be in a mask, and people would tease you and they would say, oh, that doesn't really work, or you don't really need that, or look at us, we can do it without a mask. And there was some embarrassment attached to it. Then you watch a college football game. The referees have masks, the coaches have masks, the players have, the players take them off to play, but then they can put them up when they're on the sidelines. And so it doesn't seem so odd anymore that people wear masks, okay, because we have made this adjustment to the reality of this virus. And that's what he's asking us to do, is you got to think about this virus and treat it with some respect.
Right. And as you said, the very first thing that you have to do is that you have to embrace reality. It doesn't, this isn't, you're not going to wish it away. It's very real, and
Right.
we have to accept that.
Right. Yeah. If you're an elected official, you might want to, be optimistic and talk about we're going to have a vaccine, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have that, and so you try to minimize panic and all that stuff. But the reality is, this virus isn't going anywhere. Not in the short term anyway. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be dealing with this for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So we're facing a formidable enemy with this virus, and we're going to be in it for the long haul. Mm-hmm. And so it raises our stress levels.
Right.
So just as Solzhenitsyn did when he looked at his situation and said, I can't do anything about this. Mm-hmm. But I can do something about this. Okay. So how do you make stress a motivator rather than a crushing burden? I don't want anybody to give in to this virus and say, this is hopeless. Right. My life is a mess. My life is in ruins. I just can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Certainly you don't want to take that approach. You can't flee. Where are you going to go? Every country has the virus, so you can't flee. You can't fight against it. You can protect yourself from it, but you can't really fight against it. We can't. Virologists, specialists in this field can develop vaccines and things, but that's not something that most of us are going to be able to do. So where do we seek our protection, and how do we turn this? How do we turn it into an opportunity? And that's a strange word to use, but that's what Solzhenitsyn did. That's what Viktor Frankl did. That's what the survivors do. How do you turn it into an opportunity? And what he says, what we have to do is we have to turn this into a sustainable and stable opportunity, not just covered over, but it has to be sustainable. We have to be able to do it long term, and it has to be stable. It can't come and go. If we're gonna do something, it has to be sustainable and stable. So how do we do that? Well, by embracing reality, and by taking some actions. And the actions that we take, and let me say one thing. He calls this, and I put it in my two hands, like two folders.
Yeah.
He calls this the dialectic art. Mm-hmm. And dialectic is a logic that we use, a thinking process. And the art is to manage these two extremes of reality plus what I can do. And to think about, that is to perform this dialectic, to think about how I can solve this problem. What can I do? Okay. Because this is a logical thinking mental process that we have to go through. That's what separates us from other species, is that other species, when they're stressed, when they're in danger, they react instinctively. And so they run, or they fight, or they die. Okay. And you think of the lion going after the zebras. Okay. The zebras either run away, or they fight back, or they die. Humans have another option. We can do any of those three things, but we have another option, and that is to seek protection. And that protection comes in the form of doing something about it. Okay?
Right.
What I like about this article is he ends it in two ways. One is, what might we do to protect ourselves rather than giving in? Right. Okay, we can't fight, we can't flee. How do we protect ourselves? What can we do? And so he said there are 5 things you can do, and you've posted this article, right?
Yeah. It's the link is in the show notes.
So you can see these 5 questions. First one is, what will you start?
Yeah,
we've talked about these things before, but he said, what are you going to start? Are you going to start a new practice? Are you going to start a new job? Are you going to a new further your education, a new habit, a new area? I talked to a guy yesterday. We were watching a tennis match, and he said, one of the things I've always wanted to do is to learn Spanish. He said, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to find, he said, I have a little bit of extra time. Right. We're at home more. He said, I think I'm going to take this time, and I'm going to use it to learn Spanish. That's the dialectic art. That's making a decision that's better for you. Yeah. So what can I start? And then the second question is, what can I stop?
Right. Okay, yeah. And we've talked about it, these kinds of things before. that, this is an opportunity to do and create some change.
Right.
Whether you start something new or stop something that you're wanting to stop.
Right.
This is a great opportunity to do that. You can do that despite COVID. You can do that despite wearing a mask when you go to the store. You can do that in this time of complication. You can do both of those things.
Right. That's right. And that's one of the places where you should be thinking about, if you really want to turn this into an opportunity, what you have to start thinking about: what do I want to do? What do I want to start doing? Or what do I want to stop doing? Maybe you're in a bad relationship. Okay. This would be a good time, since your life is in sort of upheaval anyway. This would be a good time to either end that relationship or change that relationship. How about a bad habit? How about a bad habit? Quit smoking, or quit screaming, quit getting angry, quit expressing, quit kicking the dog. This would be a good time to redo all that stuff. Or maybe you just want to change a limiting belief, the I can't. Many of us carry around. Okay? So what can I start? What can I stop? Third, what can I embrace?
Right to this new one, right? This third one is that what will you do? What will you embrace? And accepting some things. Accept the idea that we don't have control over some of these things in our life.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a good time, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a good time to learn that you don't have as much control as you think you have. You think you're in complete control. We all think that we're in complete control. Then this tiny little invisible virus comes in, and we learn we don't have a lot of control. There are a lot of other things going on that can upset this idea that you're in control of things. Okay. And this tiny little virus did that to an entire world, to the whole world.
Right. And as you embrace some of those things, you're going to find that there's things that you can let go of. And that's the fourth one. You can be really angry about all of that. You can be really upset about all of that. Or you can let it go. You can let go of the idea that I have to have control over all of these things. Right. As soon as you embrace the realization that you don't have control over all those things.
Yeah, we all have people in our life that we've stopped speaking to because they made us angry about something. Do we really want to end that relationship? If you really should, then I guess you should. But maybe this is an opportunity to somehow mend broken relationships. Maybe this is the time that I want to do that. So that would be another very good thing to do. That comes under that heading of what can I let go of? You can let go of all that anger. You can let go of all that being offended, being disrespected. Let go of that stuff and start enjoying your life. Yeah. And then the last one, what does the world need from you today? Or what do other people need from you today? Right. How will you make this an opportunity to start something that you've been procrastinating about? I have a list of things that I have put on hold throughout my life, that I wanted to do, or I wanted to learn, or I wanted to accomplish. Right. And I keep putting them on hold because we're too busy, or we're too this, or we're too that, which reminds me of something that I've been meaning to talk to you about. Somebody, what is a meme again? A meme is one of those things that appears right? So I saw this meme the other day, and it was, are we sure we want to return to the life that we left before COVID? Of overscheduled, overworking, not sleeping, being stressed. Do we really want to go back to that?
It's true.
Right.
It's true.
Right. And so number 5 sort of struck that chord, is do I really want to go back to those days, or maybe I ought to redo some things, remake some things, make a better place?
Not just that, but even you can even go more simple with, many people have a stack of books that they want to read, and you keep putting that off. Many people have, something that you need to clean out the garage, or you need to do, clean out the closet or something. We procrastinate on those things because life is so busy. There are so many other things to happen. This is an opportunity to do that.
Right. Maybe it's time to say what I was doing before was kind of hectic and crazy and out of control. And maybe it's time that I sort of take a new look at all these things, a fresh look, and say, wait a minute, there must be a better way to do this. I have a pile of papers at home. Probably would, if you stacked them up. It'd be up 5 or 6 feet of papers that they're on the bottom shelf of a bookcase.
Yeah.
I think it's time. I think it's time. Clean them out, get rid of them, take care of this stuff. That would make my life better. Yeah, just doing that simple thing would make my life better. I'd like to learn Spanish, but that's a bigger bite. Okay,
that's right. So
he ends this article with a fascinating. This is one of those nice little moments. It's not a thunderclap. It's not an existential view, but it's a nice reminder. It was a little bit of a wake up, a little ding in my ear. Mm-hmm. The Serenity Prayer, which everybody knows, especially from Alcoholics Anonymous, right. And we all know it. We all say it. It was first articulated by a theologian by the name of Reinhold Niebuhr. Mm-hmm. Bauer, some people say Niebauer, and it begins with this prayer has been altered. Right. It now is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. That's typically what people recite. Mm-hmm. When he first wrote that prayer, it was, Father, give me the courage to change what must be altered. Right. Serenity to accept what can't be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. His begins with courage. Right. The original prayer was courage first, and then acceptance. Okay, why it changed, I'm not sure, but the original prayer was courage. So this confronting this crisis is done with courage. Okay, not just accepting what I can't do anything about it. No, begin with courage. Mm-hmm. And I go back to Solzhenitsyn. He began with courage. Frankl began with courage. Okay, it's all about having courage and knowing what and when to accept and what and when to change. Okay,
because acceptance requires courage.
Right. That's right. And you have to begin with locus of control, that I can. This is my issue to resolve. It's my problem to solve. So I have to have the courage to solve the problem.
Right. Yeah. There's so much more that we could draw from all of this, because it is courage. It's what Brene Brown talks about with vulnerability. You have to be willing to accept, I can't do anything about this. And that means that I have a limitation. Right. And that requires a lot of vulnerability to accept that you don't have the ability to change and control everything. So we can pull from all of these different researchers and philosophers and theorists. But it does come down to, we have to have the courage first.
Right, right. When you said, I can't do anything about this, it made me think of the election year and all the complications and the issues that have arisen during this very unusual election year. And people get really worked up about politics. Either mm-hmm. This is a very divisive. People hate Trump or they love Trump. Okay, so it's very divisive. Right. It's very two poles, and people get angry and they get worked up and they get But you're right. I can't do anything about this. I don't have the capacity alone. I can vote, okay, and I can express myself there, but I really can't do anything about who he selects for the Supreme Court replacement. That's not part of my world, okay? It affects me, but I can't do anything about that. Mm-hmm. And so I accept the fact. I have to begin by accepting the fact. Once I accept that, now I have the responsibility to do what I can do, right, to make my life better, okay? Right. I can't do anything about his Supreme Court pick, but I can do something about my garage.
Right.
And that's where we have to live our lives. How do I make my life better? How do I make my family's life better? How do I get more education? How do I change my career? What can I do for me and my family and my community? You can go out to the community. There's plenty of stuff that we can do in our neighborhood or our community or our state. Yep. There we have some influence. Yeah. We're not going to affect the Supreme Court pick. So stop getting angry about it and start focusing on what you can do for yourself, for your family, and for your career.
Definitely, definitely. So check out the article. It's in the link is in the show notes. It's a great read. You may have to read it twice, but it's good information, and certainly a good perspective as we're all dealing with this. So
right, yeah, we're all in this thing together. Yeah, we're all dealing with it in one way or another. So here's some more good advice.
Absolutely. So, well, that's it for today. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.